All right, so we're going to talk about report cards. The World Series starts, I was thinking it's tomorrow, but it's still not until Friday. But I did see that the starting pitchers have been named. One, Jack Flaherty going for the Dodgers, which I know that the Tigers signed him originally so that they could move him, but I also wonder what they were thinking once they got to the postseason and made that run, if they thought to themselves, man, I wish we had Jack Flaherty. Because he did have a pretty good season. The former Cardinal, has had tons of injuries. He was their ace. In 2023, he pitched for $5.4 million for the Cardinals because of all those injuries. And then in 2024, he got a $14 million contract from the Tigers and 3.17 ERA, 3.1 WAR. I guess, so that was my wild thought Wednesday was, okay, if you don't get Corbin Burns, you don't get somebody else, would you be willing to take a flyer on 2-3 year deal for Jack Flaherty, or do the injuries just scare you too much? I don't think anybody's giving him like a 5-year deal because I think the injuries are too scary. Like
he also just wasn't good before this year,
right?
For like a nice stretch.
But he was thought of as Bellinger. He has like ace type stuff. Like he was going to be the ace of the Cardinals. He just was constantly hurt. So a shorter term deal, would that be one you would roll the dice on and be willing to, for instance, take the Kyle Hendricks money and say, hey, Jack, here's 2 years of Kyle Hendricks money?
I mean, I personally have been all about, like, I wish the Cubs would have picked him up last offseason. Just because he would have cost you nothing last offseason, and he was coming off a very mediocre season. So now that his value's up, it's kind of like, depends on how many years. Like you said, 2-3 years. I don't even know if I want to go 2-3 years. I'd go maybe 2 years with an option after the first.
You think he's going to have to settle for 1-year deals?
I
don't. I think there'll be enough suitors because he was good that there'll be a multi-year deal.
I think there's enough suitors and he's young enough where there's not a hugely extended deal, but some type of multi-year deal, I think.
It's like 28, 29?
I think he's going into his age 29 season.
I'm not against it. It's just kind of like...
Yeah. Just turned 29.
I'm not against it. I just also feel like you have some guys that you're high on. I'm not saying that Flaherty would block them because, as we've seen, injuries are a thing. But you just don't really know what you're going to get. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's my fear. And, I guess I'd go 3 years tops and put an option after both the first and second year.
3 years scares me.
Yeah.
Now you're, it could play out great. If you get the guy that pitched this year for the Tigers and you sign him to a 3-year deal, you'd say, wow, look at us. We've got Tyone, we've got Steele, we've got Imanaga, we've got Flaherty, and we have the group of young guys either coming up or used as chess pieces for somewhere else.
Sure. Like I go back and forth in the thinking of this because it's like you can't rely on all these young pitchers to provide you 30 starts. At least Flaherty has been able to do that before. He's been able to pitch full seasons. He's proven to be able to do that, and he's proven to be a top of the rotation guy in the past. So I just don't. 1 year is 1 year. It's like Bellinger is a great example here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I'm still okay with the fact that they re-signed Bellinger, like they needed to do it. Now, but here we are a year later, and a lot of fans want him to opt out. A lot of fans are hoping he opts out. And it's it's kind of a similar situation with Flaherty. So I'm not against it, but I'm also like I'd rather just go get Fried or Corbin Burns.
Jay Andrews in the live YouTube chat says it would be like Jed to sign him for 3 years and he'd be injured 2 of the 3 years. Mm-hmm. Flex Dig says Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series were not even in the same stratosphere. Ryan, I ask you, which is the more proven, dependable quantity going into next season? Would it be Jack Flaherty, who has the major league experience but also has the injury history, or would it be your young pitchers who have promise, who haven't necessarily proven it at the major league level, meaning Horton, Ben Brown, who showed glimpses of it. Like, which is the safer path? Counting on a group of those young guys to provide that spot, or counting on a guy who has done it but also has been injured a lot?
I mean, I don't think either are necessarily safe. I would think a guy who has done it before. I mean, his best season obviously was 2019, so that's even before COVID. I would say for Flaherty, this year was great. Obviously, his 2023 wasn't that good. He had a 4.99 ERA. I would say with Jack, I would probably lean towards Jack Flaherty. I do think the fact that he made 28 starts this season. He made 27 starts, pitched 29 times last season. So that's back-to-back years of pretty good health overall. I would say that he does have the injury history, but he is an established major league talent. Whereas, I think we're all pretty high on Ben Brown's potential. We think Jordan Wicks can be a good pitcher at this level. Hayden Wesneski, we're still not sure, but even if he's more of a bullpen guy, he's still potential starting pitching depth. And then Cade Horton, who could potentially make his debut at some point this year. Someone we're really high on, the best pitching prospect in the system, right? Like, I think that all matters, but you can't. None of those four guys contributed immensely to this team this season. When a season that you kind of needed two or three of them to do so. So I don't think you can go and count on that group, the young starting pitching group, to be what you need them to be in 2025, based on the fact that most of them were injured for most of the season this season.
That's the problem.
They're just not proven at the major league level. Again, I think we're high on a lot of these guys' potential. They're just not proven at the major league level. Jack Flaherty has his injury history, sure, but he is an established major league talent. I don't think if I'm choosing between the two, it's probably the safer option is to go and sign Jack Flaherty. I think the Cubs should aim higher if they're addressing the starting pitching position.
I'm with you.
This offseason, but between those two options, it would seem to me the safer option is going and getting the established major league talent to bolster that rotation. And depending on what the deal is, obviously, as well. But
I just went and looked up his numbers with Detroit and then the Dodgers. We've talked about in the past this season how the Dodger Stadium, like the most homers have been hit at Dodger Stadium, right? And I know there's Ohtani there and all that, but Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman didn't exactly have their greatest seasons that they've ever had, right? Muncy, I don't remember how many he hit, but either way, there's been a lot of homers hit there. When you look at Comerica Park, though, it's a big park.
Right. It's a good ballpark for him.
That his ERA with Detroit was 2.59.
Really good.
And in LA, it's 3.58. His FIP was pretty different, though. He had a 3.12 FIP with Detroit and a 4.16 FIP with the Dodgers in the regular season, at least. So, as we've talked about, weather played a factor at Wrigley in the pro and the negative this year. But I will say that I think he generates more swing and miss than a lot of what the Cubs have. So I like the guy. I just think it's such a toss-up on what you're going to get. And I only brought up like the two different teams just because ballparks do matter when it comes to some pitchers. You know what I mean? Like, no one goes to Colorado for obvious reasons. Like, no one wants to go to Colorado unless you're going for money, of course, which, but Wrigley played like a pitcher's park this year. Will it next year? We don't know. You're the weatherman, Luke. Tell me.
That's true.
It will if you have Corbin Burns in the rotation. That helps. Like, to what people are saying in the chat, Jay among them, I think Ryan is going this way. I would aim higher. If you can get Burns and you can throw the money at Burns, and now you have your clear ace and you have Steele and Imanaga, and you still have the young guys that you can mix in, that's great. That's where I would go. I'm just pointing out that Flaherty could be a cheaper backup plan if things don't happen. That, wouldn't excite me nearly as much, but would also be a pretty good deal.
We all silly like the mayor.